Breaking news. Chaos erupted in South Carolina, and the source of it was not a shooter, but a shocking blunder by Representative Nancy Mace. In a post that spread like wildfire, Mace shared the photo of an innocent young man carrying nothing more than an umbrella, claiming he was an active shooter on the campus of the University of South Carolina. The image ricocheted across social media, sparking fear, confusion, and panic. Students locked themselves in classrooms, parents flooded police lines with desperate calls, and the community braced for tragedy that never came. Within minutes, authorities confirmed the truth. There was no gunman. The threat was a student walking to class in the rain, but the damage was done. National media outlets seized on the blunder, replaying the photo again and again as commentators blasted the congresswoman's recklessness. One survivor of the Parkland shooting said it best. This wasn't a mistake, it was a death sentence. When a politician with a platform screams shooter without proof, she paints a target on someone's back. The backlash was swift. Students mocked the episode online with the hashtag #UmbrellaGate, but the laughter carried an undertone of outrage. Professors denounced the fear it spread, parents demanded answers, and activists accused Mace of endangering the very lives she claimed to protect. Instead of apologizing, she pivoted, doubling down and attempting to turn the chaos into political currency. That's when Jasmine Crockett entered the story. Standing before reporters, she delivered a blistering rebuke. Nancy Mace didn't just spread panic, she spread danger. Words from leaders carry weight, and when those words are reckless, people can die. What she did was not leadership. It was negligence. It was exploitation. And it betrayed every student on that campus. The line hit like thunder. For millions of Americans watching, this was not just about an umbrella. It was about responsibility, truth, and the terrifying cost of lies shouted from positions of power. The fallout from Nancy Mace's false alarm spread like wildfire through South Carolina and beyond. Students at the University of South Carolina described a night of pure terror. One freshman recounted barricading herself in a bathroom with 3 classmates, whispering into her phone, "I thought I was going to die. My mom was crying on the other end, begging me to stay quiet." Another student said he sprinted across campus after receiving a text alert from a friend who had seen Mace's post. "We thought the shooter was right behind us. It was chaos." Parents, blindsided by frantic calls from their children, flooded 911 lines demanding answers. Some drove hours in the middle of the night to reach the campus, convinced their sons and daughters were in mortal danger. One father, holding back tears during a local news interview, said, "We lived through 3 hours of hell, and it was all because a congresswoman couldn't check her facts." By morning, the backlash had turned into mobilization. Students gathered on the quad, holding signs that read, "Facts before fear," and "We are not political props." Parents joined them, demanding accountability. What began as a single reckless tweet had mushroomed into a campus-wide protest, with chants echoing across the state. No more fear, no more lies. Activist groups amplified the anger, pointing out how dangerous misidentifications can be, especially in a country scarred by real school shootings. Civil rights leaders warned that false accusations like this put innocent young men, particularly men of color, at risk of being gunned down by police responding to false alarms. And in the center of the firestorm was Jasmine Crockett. Speaking before the cameras, she turned fury into clarity. What Nancy Mace did was not just irresponsible, it was deadly reckless. She played politics with the lives of students. She weaponized fear for attention, and when leaders trade truth for headlines, the people they're supposed to protect pay the price. Her words struck a chord, spreading virally on social media under the hashtag #NoMoreFear, which quickly eclipsed the mocking #Umbrella Gate. It was no longer just a joke, it was a movement. The scandal had evolved from a blunder into a reckoning. Nancy Mace was no longer just facing laughter, she was facing rage, and Jasmine Crockett had placed herself at the forefront of that storm. The media storm that followed was relentless. National outlets plastered Nancy Mace's face on every screen, replaying the infamous umbrella photo alongside frantic footage of students fleeing across campus. Headlines were merciless. Congresswoman creates chaos with false shooter alert. Mace's reckless tweet sparks panic. From umbrella to outrage. Commentators from both sides of the aisle tore into her credibility, pointing out the terrifying irony. In a country traumatized by real shootings, a member of Congress had manufactured one out of thin air. Editorials called it the perfect storm of irresponsibility. The New York Times warned, "When leaders cry wolf, lives are placed at risk." Nancy Mace's false alarm was not a mistake. It was a betrayal. The Washington Post described her as reckless to the point of endangerment. Even conservative voices, normally quick to defend, struggled to justify her actions. One analyst admitted on air, "You can't spin this." She endangered kids. The damage wasn't limited to headlines. Political rivals seized the opportunity. Ads began circulating in South Carolina showing the umbrella photo with bold text, "Nancy Mace, put your child in danger." Her opponents in the governor's race pounced, framing her as unfit for higher office. And then came Jasmine Crockett, delivering the line that would define the scandal. Standing before a rally of furious students, she declared, "Words can kill." When Nancy Mace screamed "shooter" without evidence, she didn't just spread fear, she loaded the gun of panic and pointed it at every innocent student on that campus. That is not leadership. That is recklessness. That is violence by another name. The crowd erupted in chants of "reckless, reckless" as clips of Jasmine's speech dominated social media. Hashtags "words can kill" and "Mace must go" surged into the millions. Survivors of actual shootings joined the chorus, condemning Mace for exploiting the trauma of an entire generation for political theater. For the first time, the scandal was no longer just about one night on a campus. It had become a national conversation about accountability, truth, and the weaponization of fear. And Jasmine Crockett, with surgical precision, had reframed the story. Nancy Mace wasn't just careless. She was dangerous. Just when Nancy Mace's team hoped the controversy might fade, another scandal detonated. Investigative reporters uncovered evidence that Mace's inner circle had used burner accounts and bot networks to flood social media with defenses of her false shooter alert. According to a bombshell Wired report, former staffers confirmed that these accounts were deliberately created to shift the narrative and drown out criticism. One ex-aide revealed, "She wanted us to make it look like parents and students supported her call." But it was all fake. Manufactured outrage, manufactured support. Screenshots quickly surfaced showing suspiciously identical comments across dozens of accounts, all parroting the same talking points. "Better safe than sorry. Mace protected the students. Don't blame her for being cautious." The discovery of this coordinated effort only deepened public anger. What had first been seen as reckless now appeared calculated, manipulative, and cynical. National outlets seized on the story. The Associated Press headline was blunt, "Nancy Mace's Fake Army." Late-night comedians mocked her relentlessly, comparing her umbrella panic to Crying Wolf and then hiring bots to applaud her for it. Students responded with biting humor. A giant inflatable umbrella appeared at a campus protest with a banner reading, "I am not a shooter." But Jasmine Crockett cut through the laughter with fury. At a fiery press conference, she said, "It wasn't enough that Nancy Mace endangered students with her reckless lie. Now we know she tried to cover it up with more lies, hiding behind fake accounts and digital puppets. This isn't just negligence, this is deception, this is manipulation, and it proves one thing. She cares more about saving her career than saving lives." Her words hit like a sledgehammer. Within hours, hashtags #fake army and #UmbrellaGate exploded across platforms. Students mocked the fake accounts by tweeting from parody profiles, "Hi, I'm totally real and I love Nancy Mace." Activists framed it as part of a larger pattern of dishonesty from politicians who play with fear for gain. For Mace, the revelations were devastating. What began as a reckless mistake had now metastasized into proof of dishonesty. And for Jasmine Crockett, it was the perfect moment to hammer home her point. If you can't tell the truth about a student with an umbrella, how can you be trusted to tell the truth about anything that actually matters? The scandal was no longer about a single night of panic. It had become a referendum on Nancy Mace's character. As pressure mounted, Nancy Mace faced a choice: apologize and attempt to rebuild trust, or double down. She chose the latter. At a press conference meant to set the record straight, Mace stood before reporters and unleashed a torrent of defiance. "I will not apologize for trying to protect students. I'd rather be wrong than sorry. And as for Jasmine Crockett, she is exploiting this tragedy to score political points. She's nothing more than a radical opportunist, a disgrace to Congress." The statement landed with a thud. Reporters pressed her repeatedly. Did she regret misidentifying an innocent student? Did she regret spreading fear? Did she regret flooding social media with fake support? Each time she deflected, growing visibly agitated. "My only regret," she finally snapped, "is that people like Jasmine Crockett care more about headlines than saving lives." The backlash was swift. Editorials blasted her refusal to take responsibility. The Charleston Post and Courier headline captured the moment. No apology, no accountability. Students on campus jeered at her words, chanting, "We deserve better," during a live news broadcast. On social media, her comments went viral for all the wrong reasons. The clip of her attacking Jasmine while ignoring direct questions racked up millions of views under the hashtag Mace Meltdown. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett turned the attack into fuel. At a rally in Atlanta, she responded with controlled fury. "Nancy Mace calls me an opportunist? Let me tell you what opportunism looks like. It's taking the trauma of school shootings and weaponizing it for attention. It's turning fear into clicks. It's refusing to say the two words every leader must know when they make a mistake. I'm sorry, that's not strength, it's cowardice." The crowd erupted, chants of "Coward! Coward!" filling the arena. Cable news replayed the clip on a loop, framing it as the knockout punch of the week. Analysts agreed. Mace had walked straight into the trap, elevating Jasmine's voice while diminishing her own credibility. Even among her allies, whispers of doubt began to spread. One GOP strategist admitted off record, "She's becoming toxic. The more she fights, the more she loses." What Mace intended as an attack on Jasmine Crockett had backfired spectacularly. Instead of shifting blame, she had cemented the narrative. Nancy Mace was reckless, dishonest, and incapable of accountability. And Jasmine Crockett, she had become the voice of reason, truth, and moral clarity in a storm fueled by arrogance. The fallout from Nancy Mace's refusal to apologize triggered a tidal wave of outrage that spread far beyond South Carolina. What had started as a campus protest grew into a national movement, uniting students, parents, and activists under a single demand: accountability. In Columbia, thousands marched through the streets with umbrellas held high in symbolic protest. Across the country, campuses staged solidarity demonstrations, carrying banners that read, "Facts before fear," and "Leaders, don't cry wolf." At night, candlelight vigils illuminated quads from Boston to Los Angeles, students standing in silence for the hours they spent terrified because of one congresswoman's reckless post. The political consequences began to snowball. Donors quietly pulled support from Mace's gubernatorial campaign, worried her umbrella panic had turned into a permanent stain. Polling numbers revealed a sharp drop in her approval rating, with independents abandoning her in droves. Editorial boards across the country hammered home the same message. If Nancy Mace can't tell the difference between a student with an umbrella and a shooter, she cannot be trusted with leadership. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett rode the wave of momentum with precision. At a massive rally in Charlotte, she declared, "This movement is bigger than one congresswoman. This is about every leader who thinks they can weaponize fear without consequences." Nancy Mace cried wolf and almost got people killed. We are here to say, never again. The crowd, a mix of students and parents, erupted into chants of, "Never again! Never again!" Clips of the speech spread like wildfire, dominating TikTok and X under the hashtag number #NeverAgainMace. Young activists, many of whom had never attended a protest before, posted videos holding umbrellas with captions like, "This is what leadership fear looks like." Mace, desperate to regain control, doubled down yet again, appearing on conservative talk shows to claim she was the victim of a smear campaign. But even sympathetic hosts couldn't avoid the obvious question: why hadn't she simply admitted the mistake? Her defiance sounded less like strength and more like stubborn denial. For Jasmine Crockett, the moment was transformative. What began as a clash over one reckless tweet had morphed into a national crusade about truth, leadership, and accountability. And for Nancy Mace, every day of denial deepened the wound, leaving her isolated, weakened, and branded with a new political identity she could never shake: the congresswoman who cried shooter. The nation held its breath as Jasmine Crockett stepped onto a stage in Washington, D.C., with thousands of umbrellas raised high in the crowd before her. What had started as a reckless misidentification by Nancy Mace had grown into a national movement, and tonight it reached its crescendo. The camera zoomed in, capturing Jasmine's fire as she prepared to deliver the words that would define the scandal forever. "We've all seen the photo. We've all heard the lies." Nancy Mace pointed at an innocent young man with an umbrella and shouted, "Shooter!" In that moment, she didn't just endanger one student. She endangered an entire campus. She endangered every family who feared their child would never come home. And when the truth came out, instead of saying, "I'm sorry," she doubled down, hid behind fake accounts, and tried to spin fear into power. The crowd roared, but Jasmine pressed forward, her voice rising with every sentence. "That is not leadership. That is cowardice. That is recklessness, and it is dangerous. Because words from a leader can spread faster than bullets. Words can kill just as easily as weapons when they ignite panic, when they fuel division, when they put innocent lives at risk." Umbrellas waved above the crowd like a sea of defiance. Hashtags, "Da, words can kill," and "never again." Mace lit up the jumbotron surrounding the stage as Jasmine delivered her final blow. Nancy Mace wanted power more than truth. She wanted headlines more than safety. But America deserves leaders who put facts before fear, people before politics, and truth before ambition. Her tone shifted, turning from fury to resolve. This movement is not just about one congresswoman. It is about every leader who thinks fear is a tool for power. Tonight, we say, never again. Never again will we let lies endanger lives. Never again will we let fear masquerade as leadership. Never again will we let recklessness go unchecked. The crowd erupted into chants of, "Never again! Never again!" As umbrellas lifted higher, candles flickered in the night, and the nation watched a symbol born from a mistake transform into a rallying cry for accountability. Jasmine raised her fist, her voice thundering over the chants. "If you believe words matter, stand with me. If you believe truth matters, stand with me. And if you believe America deserves better than Nancy Mace, then raise your voices tonight. Because together, we will end the politics of fear. Together, we will build a future of truth." The roar was deafening. The images unforgettable. Umbrella Gate had become more than a scandal. It was now a movement. And Jasmine Crockett stood as its fearless voice.